Yeah. Okay, we are good, y'all. Welcome to the Find Peace After Divorce Masterclass. I'm so excited to have y'all here. We got a full house, everyone from all over North America here today. It is amazing. Oh, someone else is coming in. Good timing, good timing. All right, so I'm going to let another participant in. I'm just going to welcome everyone, let y'all know that, I have been through divorce, and unfortunately for me, it was, the worst, part of my life. I lost my home, I lost my financial I mean, I just lost everything, my health, and I really understand how it can leave you emotionally devastated. But I will say it was the start of my journey to healing. And so my intention with this workshop today is to give y'all the keys how to heal from this traumatic event, and you can create amazing new relationships going forward. And I'm going to share also, if you are so inclined, how we can work together at the end of this workshop. So who is this workshop for? It is for you. Let me see if I can get the slideshow going, because it seems to be on my there we go. Are you successful professionally, but your intimate relationships are a hot mess? That was me. Wanting more confidence, you want to feel more energetic, you want to feel at peace no matter what's going on around you. Do you struggle with boundaries? Do you constantly second guess yourself? Are you feeling insecure? Do you feel anxious a lot of the time, especially if you're not in control, quote unquote, of all things? Do you struggle with loneliness and you grapple with feeling rejected, abandoned, you feel unworthy and not good enough? Perhaps you've tried therapy, but it still left you feeling stuck. Trying to move on. So, are you wanting to feel happier in all of your relationships, and you're ready, willing, and able to make the changes that you need if you only knew how? So this is where I'm going to teach you just a really quick kind of meditation. It's to ground me, because you can tell I just have a lot of energy. I get my energy going with the music. Steph knows how empowering music can be. And so then I kind of have to bring myself down. So this meditation I'm going to teach you is a really great grounding meditation. It really kind of brings you to a very level sort of energy. So if you want to just take a moment, you want to turn off your camera, if you want to close your eyes, I'm totally fine with whatever. And I'm going to kind of guide you through some relaxation. So what I'd like to teach you to do is to do something called a Foursquare breathing or a box breathing. So if you kind of imagine yourself inhaling and exhaling on a 4 count. Okay, so I just want you to close your eyes, and you're going to inhale through your nose and you're going to exhale through your mouth. So I'm going to have you inhale and I'll do the counting for you. And that's 4. And I want you to hold that for 4 counts. There's 4. Exhale for 4. 2, 3, 4. Hold that for 4. 2, 3, 4. Inhale for 4 through your nose. Hold for 4. 2, 3, 4. Exhale for 4. 2, 3, 4. Hold for 4. Now, as you're continuing to do this box breathing, I just want you to just let go of any thoughts that might be coming in. Just see them, acknowledge them, let them go. Just be here with us today. Let go of any worries, let go of any concerns or doubts or any anxieties that you might be holding on to. And just with each breath, notice your body becoming more relaxed, more centered, more grounded into the chair that you're in. And you're continuing to do that. Inhale for 4, hold for 4, and exhale through your mouth for 4. And in addition to becoming more relaxed, more grounded, more centered, I want you also just kind of imagine that your heart is more open, your mind is just more at peace, and you're here with us, and you're ready and able to hear whatever message is coming to you today. And I want you to do another round of that, 2 more rounds. And just whenever you're ready, come back with us. And all right. All right. Are we feeling more centered? Are we feeling more grounded? Ooh, it's just amazing how like 1 minute, 2 minutes can like completely shift how you're showing up. Oh my gosh, love it, Deb. I can tell like her energy, so grounded. So I'm going to introduce a little bit about me, and then I'd love to get some feedback from y'all about like what you're hoping to get from the workshop today. So who am I? There I am, rocking those little bangs. So, I kind of told you here at the beginning that I grew up just a poor country girl from Virginia, if you haven't guessed my accent. My mom was a single mom. She was divorced. She did not have a high school even education. And so I grew up very poor, just in a trailer out in the, mountainous part of Virginia. And we had, just very little, I would say. And my mom was divorced, and my biological father pretty much abandoned us I think from the beginning of the divorce. I guess I was like 3 or 4 at the time. I don't really remember. And what few interactions I had with him were very negative, kind of disparaging remarks about me, my looks. And also today, I think we'd call this functioning alcoholic. He just couldn't stop drinking. Really, the issue was he couldn't stop drinking to come and visit us. So I also was abused sexually by a family member when I was about 6, 7 years old. So the reason why I'm telling y'all all of this is because all of this trauma, a lot of shame, all this stuff that I grew up with as a child really bled into how I showed up as an adult. Now, I was driven professionally. I was quote unquote, a high achiever in school and, work and my career and things like that. But as far as my relationships, they were a hot mess. And just like my mom, I repeated the generational trauma of like being divorced when my kids were, preschoolers. And I found myself just really, really devastated, kind of thrown into this divorce, didn't know what the hell I was doing. And I made every mistake that I think you can make during a divorce, like legally, financially, emotionally, everything you can do. I just did not know what I was doing. I ended up being homeless. I lost my home because then I lost my financial standing. I couldn't afford my home. Ended up living with some strange woman for a period of time. I lost my mom during this period, the one woman who I feel like could really understand what I was going through. I lost my health. I was hit by a van, just freak accident, but that ended up like kind of spiral into several like surgeries and like, oh my gosh, like everything that, and then just emotionally, I was just a wreck. I ended up like with 2 different attorneys, 2 failed mediations, 2.5 years of this prolonged, really needless, process. And I look back at it now, and now, of course, like, doing what I do, I know all the things that you could do to prevent all of that. So the good news is, let's skip to the good stuff. The good news is I had like put my life back together. That's actually my ex-husband and I. And if you had told me during that time that I would be, having dinners, having parties, celebrating with my ex-husband and his new wife, like I would have thought you were crazy. No way in hell. Like we hated each other, just like every typical kind of divorcing couple. I am remarried. And like I said, he is an amazing, sexy New York Italian. So the kids get to make fun of both of our accents. And I have done some amazing things. I've written two women empowerment books. I've met some of my personal heroes. I speak all over the country to other divorce professionals and other divorcing people, like how to make your life better, how to overcome this. And that's like my best friend, who's also my kid's stepmom. So I think people kind of feel like, you know, oh my gosh, how have you been able to do it? So a lot of it is just healing from the inside, and then those relationships end up shifting as you show up differently. So if I can do it, you can do it. I am not special. It's just certain things that if you know can hugely shift how you show up in your life. So the thing is, why I'm really passionate about helping people actually kind of either considering divorce or post-divorce is like, really, y'all, I am a stepmom. I am remarried. And I will tell you, I see this time and time again, how many second marriages fail. Really, the first marriage divorce rate is really only at like 27, 29%. I don't have current statistics due to COVID, but I will say that second marriages end up in divorce at a rate of 70% if you have kids. It's because you are highly likely to repeat the mistakes. And then you add on, because you haven't really fully healed your divorce baggage. But not only that, you add on stepkids, high conflict exes, all the like stressors of being in blended families and step families and exes. And I get it, because I'm telling you, being a stepmom was probably as hard. Like I joke, I say, oh my God, I would rather be hit by that van again than to go through that 2 years again of like blending our families. It was so difficult. And listen, toxic relationships, they devastate you in a health situation. I actually have clients that come to me because their health is suffering. So they've got to like heal all this emotional baggage that they're dragging around and this childhood trauma that they've never healed. It causes anxiety, depression. Divorce people, I used to say it was divorced women had a 35% likelihood of having a heart attack. Now it's men too. But particularly for men, divorce, the lack of mental health support for men, right now there's such a devastation occurring with our men. So I am so glad to see all these men on here with us today, because their mortality rate is 250 times that of women, and their suicide rate is double, depression rate is triple. So it is so important to get the support that you need. The sooner you heal from this, the better it is, the healthier you become. I see clients who actually skyrocket in their careers and take off in all areas of their life, because so many of us are carrying around so many unhealed beliefs about who they are. It prevents us from being who we could be. I don't know why my thing is like sticking. Oh no, I went too far. So let's talk about the outcomes, y'all. Let's talk about the outcomes. So I want you to walk away with learning how you can feel secure, confident, and peace again. I'm going to show you some tools that can create better relationships, but it starts with you. We're going to let go of past regret, anger, hurt, and guilt. We're going to learn what you must know in order to trust again and set firm boundaries, okay? So what I like to do, I do this workshop all the time, but every time y'all come, even my clients, they attend these, because every time you come, they're different. So I like to interact with y'all, like, what would you say is your biggest challenge, so that I can make sure that I address this on our workshop today. So if you don't feel comfortable coming on screen, you can always just put it in the chat box. I'm going to write some notes. I like to take notes as we go. Let me just stop sharing for a minute. Okay. Ooh, look at Kristen and her like, ooh, I love that headshot. All right, so tell me, what's your biggest challenge? I know one of us said is like, it's letting go, healing from the divorce. That was in December. So now we're into April. So we're definitely going to talk about how to heal from the divorce. Go ahead, Ann. Go ahead. Yeah.
So just to give you really fast background. I just turned 71. I was married for 43 years, and my husband suddenly announced to my daughter that he was leaving me. And that was just about 3 years ago. So I have come a long way, but right now, this is like the 3 year mark, so to speak. And I find myself slipping backwards into a lot of resentment, especially when it comes to the financial part of things.
Okay.
My choices are very limited,
Mm-hmm.
making me mad as hell.
Okay. Okay.
To be
Yeah,
honest.
it's hard. It's hard, particularly for women, to kind of rebuild after divorce.
Yeah.
So it's a long-term marriage. And again, I'm sure, Anne, you had this vision of like, this is how we're spending retirement together. You had this whole plan, and then he's just done a complete 180. I will say, you're not going to like this. I did not name this, but long-term marriages are the highest,
Yeah.
statistically speaking, the highest. Then they call it the gray divorce. They call it
Yes.
gray divorce is on the rise. It's terrible,
Yeah.
terrible name. Because if you, even 30 years, like if you've been married 30 years, you're still young today, considering how healthy and things we are. So resentment, yeah, I appreciate that. Okay.
Mhm.
Loneliness, I'm saying some things like trusting again, feeling lonely, feeling resentful. Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. Okay. Deb? Okay.
I can share a little bit.
Deb, you went on mute again. I don't know what happened.
Okay. I don't know about something. I was married for 42 years also. However, it's kind of a long story. I found out some things after the fact, how he was cheating on me from the beginning. And anyway, so I was the one who initiated the divorce. I learned about narcissism, and that once my eyes were open to what was going on and what had been going on from the beginning of my marriage, I decided I didn't want to live with this for the rest of my life, looking forward. Instead of looking back, I decided to look forward and say, I have another 20 years ahead of me, or 30, or however many. And so I decided, but it's still very devastating, financially, emotionally. And it's been for me about 2 years now. And one of the main things, though, I'm asking about, one, as far as the main challenges, after about a year and a half, so 6 months ago, I finally decided I could consider dating again, which I didn't really think at my age, or what, my stage of life, or whatever, was even going to be something. But but I have, and I am, and I'm seeing someone now that I've been seeing for a few weeks. But I have because of living with the narcissism, and not being not being aware of it, I have a hard time, and then learning about it after the fact or whatever, I have a hard time now trusting anyone, any men, any relationships. And so, because I look back and say, oh, I should have seen all these red flags, or whatever. And so now I see red flags everywhere. And so that's kind of a hard thing for me. So I think I'm sabotaging this relationship that I'm in right now by maybe seeing everything he does as a red flag, when I don't So it's
Okay.
just,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Awesome. Okay. Thanks, Deb. Let me speak to that really quickly too. So, and also I'm seeing in the chat box too, just telling everyone that there's also like people are putting feeling lonely, trusting again. So I get that, you know, and I'm going to, so I will talk extensively on trust and loneliness. But I also want to just say, when there is betrayal trauma, what makes it particularly difficult during divorce is that, okay, so, you know, when you go through divorce, maybe y'all don't know this, you're actually grieving. So, especially if you've been in this long-term marriage, like you're grieving so much. Okay, someone has written like depression and procrastination. Okay, procrastination, that goes into a lot of this, like lack of energy, lack of motivation. And again, you're grieving. So you're grieving not only the past, right? Or what you, let me take that back. You're grieving not only what you thought was ahead of you, but with betrayal in particular, you're grieving what you thought was your past. All the stuff that you thought had happened or you thought was like is now colored and filtered through this lens of like, oh my gosh, I was so blind, or that didn't really happen. He was really off doing this and this and this. So not only are you grieving what you think you thought your future was going to be, you're grieving what you thought your past was. So the level of grief is intense. Yes, I see the heads nodding. Yes. And listen, I mean, grief, people don't understand this. And people who haven't been through divorce really don't get it. Like they don't get what we've been through, how emotionally overwhelming it is. And so, you know, a lot of what I tell people is like a lot of self-compassion, a lot of self-nurturing, a lot of self-care. We, you know, the thing is like if your spouse died, people would be so compassionate and they'd be showing up with meals and like, but you're going through a grieving process. And it's just that people don't understand that. So they lack the compassion, they lack the understanding. They don't really understand like, well, why is she acting that way? Why is he acting that way? They don't understand anxiety, depression. And then you add on betrayal trauma on top of it. And it's like, woo. And then we'll hit on toxic relationships because I think there's a few of you on here that, from what I know about, have said, you know, unhealthy relationships, why do they take a toll on us? Why do we see everything as red flags that we didn't see? So I'm gonna go into that too, about the second guessing, like why am I second guessing myself? How do I change that? How do I shift that? And there are, the way I teach and the way I do my programs and why it's so different from therapy is because I give actionable tools, actionable things that you can implement in your life today that are gonna shift how you show up. So we're going to talk about some of that stuff. Let me get my screen back up. But thank y'all for sharing. Thank you for your vulnerability and for sharing your journey, because I know it's not easy. But I tell people, you know, that's why I'm very open and honest in the beginning of who I am and what I've been through, because I really do believe that by sharing our stories, we're helping other people. And we're only as sick as our secrets, right? And when we start overcoming it, sharing our story, we're going to help other people along the way, and they can learn from us, and we can bring other people through it as well. So let's see. So how do you trust your judgment again? So there are some things that you can do. So I don't believe in that, Deb. And there is this there's this kind of saying about how long you should stay single before you date again. I really don't prescribe to that half a year for every year you're married, because like for many of us, that would be a very, very long time. I believe that there's conscious, intentional things that you can implement in your life to heal from it even quicker so that you can get back out and have the relationship that you want. And it starts with, you know, because I hate that saying, time heals all wounds. That is absolutely not true. All time does is just like maybe we'll forget, but we bury that stuff deep down subconsciously, and it comes out eventually. That's why I think so many second marriages do end up in divorce, because people haven't taken accountability for themselves and like learned about themselves and why they got into the relationship that they did. They haven't healed their own baggage, and they think, oh, it was my partner's fault, I'll just marry a new partner. But that's not really gonna really change it if you're still bringing your own communication issues and your own unresolved traumas into the relationship. And so that's why I think so many second marriages end. We have to do an autopsy of the marriage and take accountability for our part in it. Not blame, I'm not talking about blame, but I'm talking about, what were the little things I missed in the beginning? Where didn't I speak up when I should have spoken up? Or where did I let my identity slide? And where did I not show up the way maybe would have been a healthier way to show up? So when we blame others, we give up our power to grow. And I will tell y'all, the most empowering thing you can do is, like, even in unhealthy relationships, even with super unhealthy, toxic people, you can look at this and say, how am I showing up in this relationship, and how can I change so that I can change this dynamic that's going on here? And I mean, I'm not perfect, and I've got relationships that I would say in my family that are less than what I desire. And there was a time when at first all that trauma was going on, and this person was just really difficult to work with. And I was a victim, and I was like, if they'd stop doing that, if they, only do this, if they'd stop saying that and they'd behave a certain way, I'd be so happy. And I was in this whole victim mindset. And it was when I said, you know what, that person's not going to change. I have to change how I'm showing up. I have to change this mindset. I have to change what I'm doing, what I'm saying, and how I'm thinking, so I can find happiness. Because this person is not going to change. So that toxic ex, that high conflict ex, is not going to change, and nothing we do is going to necessarily change them. Although I will say, when we show up differently, they respond differently. And I'm going to give you a very good example of that. So when we look at the marriage and any relationships that's really struggling, and we say, how am I showing up? How can I take responsibility here? How can I shift what I'm doing? You're going to take back your control. And it's so empowering. You feel so much better when you have actionable steps. So I want to give you kind of an example of my client, Linda, who I'm still working with. And when she came to me, y'all, it was just a horrible divorce. It was a really messy divorce. And she was struggling to get along, to the point her ex would show up in his truck to drop off their son. And, it would be, at first we just were working through her anxiety of how to even handle seeing him. She was so triggered by him. And so they couldn't even communicate, and they had to co-parent, right? They had a son together. So they had to figure this out. And just like me, I had a horrible divorce. When she started shifting how she was interacting with her ex, things started changing. And now, I mean, I gotta say, even I'm blown away with this. I'm blown away. I'm not gonna lie here. They hang out. They're traveling together, and I was like, even I'm very shocked at this. I'm not even gonna lie. But it was because she stopped being defensive. She stopped being controlling, or his perception of her controlling him, in a way. So she showed up how she changed how she would show up and how she communicated with him. And just, I would say, very quickly over time, particularly with COVID, because they were forced to interact, it completely changed. And, now she's not anxious. Again, of course she's not anxious around him, but she has a career now. She went from being a stay-at-home mom to a career. That's going to evolve even more so next year, that we know. I mean, it's just been a miracle to witness. I'll just be honest. But when you show up differently and you say, well, okay, what am I doing? What am I doing that's causing this reaction? What am I how can I respond differently? How can I, where am I reacting? And the thing is too, a lot of my clients come to me, not actually after the divorce, but after toxic relationships. They're like, oh, okay, I left the marriage. And then they figure out oh, that was rough, that was bad. And then they go start dating again. And then they're like, oh my God, this is even worse. I've attracted someone even worse, you know? So we'll talk about that too. So if you understand that the negative emotions are here to serve a purpose. So life presents you with like people and events to show you where you still need healing. So for me, it was that, you know, toxic, mentally, you know, mental health issues. And dealing with her, I just had to change how I was showing up. And now I honestly can say, y'all, like that time and the energy and all the work that I put, all the inner work that I did on myself, like has paid off. It's made me a better mom. It's made me a better wife. My marriage benefited from that because my husband and I became even closer because I did the inner healing. I did the inner work to let go of like some of the judgments I was holding on to, some of the old conditioning that I had around what I was doing. So the triggers and the judgments are really where the awareness is. That's where you are going to heal. That's where you can say, oh, I'm holding a judgment here. Let me look deeper and try to understand what's the belief here? What's the conditioning that I need to let go of so that I can be happy? Because you can be happy no matter what the circumstances. You can be at peace and content no matter whether you get a high conflict ex or you're getting along with your ex. You know, it's all about you taking ownership and learning, okay, that high conflict ex, they're here to I think I wrote a post like it's a long time ago. It's like your shitty ex is like the key to your healing. Like whatever they're doing that's triggering you, like that's where your work is. And so if you look at it as like, oh, that boss that like bugs the hell out of you when you look inward and you look at your own judgments and you look at your own stuff, you go, oh, that's what that's teaching me. Okay, I got it. So for me, my loneliness was really the start of my journey. So since a lot of y'all said like loneliness, let me see, I think I have, okay, yeah, I do have a slide on this. Okay, I do have a slide. So loneliness, here's the thing, y'all. It was during my separation when this woman had said, okay, you can, you know, temporarily stay here. Because like I said, I lost my home and everything. And I was just like, so like deeply depressed. And I was sitting in her basement watching documentaries after documentaries, because that's my thing, just depressing documentaries. And I was just crying. And I'll just be honest. So this is where my total transparency came in. Like I desperately wanted to go out. I'm attractive. I'm okay looking. I wanted to go back out in the clubs. I wanted to meet men. I wanted to feel good about myself again because my self-esteem was so low. And it was in that time that I was like, you know what, girl, you were lonely during the marriage. You're lonely now. It's time to like just sit with this loneliness. And I didn't know it at the time. Now I call it consciously surrendering, intentionally surrendering. By consciously surrendering to that, it was my awakening, because I really just sat in that loneliness night after night after night. And I recognized this is really about the abandonment from your father. You really don't love yourself because you feel like you're unlovable. If your own father can't love you, no one really loves you. You're unlovable. And it was like kind of my light bulb moment of like, whoa, okay, now I've had this awareness. What do I do about it? Like, how do I love myself? Like, how do you get to that point where you love and accept yourself and you let go of that? And that's what I teach, right? So I look at these lingering things like loneliness is getting to the heart of that. And for every client, it tends to be, it's kind of the same theme. It's unworthiness, it's unlovable, like the rejection, the abandonment. I was speaking with a client this week, and again, he comes from a great family, but some of the stuff that we have uncovered in our work together is a brand new client. And I'm like, dude, you got some serious trauma, you know? His parents, although loving and meant well, have imparted on him some pretty unhealthy ideas about who he was, and they were showing up in his life. Now it shows up in business and his divorce and everything. But when you're holding on to things like I'm unworthy or I'm unlovable, his is like, I'm nothing unless I'm accomplishing stuff. And you know what I tell people is like, you cannot heal internal problems with external solutions. And he had been trying to achieve and make money and make himself feel good, but like deep down he just didn't feel like he was worthy. And so it's that conditioning. So if you're struggling with anxiety, which is like his major symptom, it's a sign of a deeper issue. Loneliness, anxiety, feeling abandoned. It usually means that there's unresolved issues that need to be addressed. So like what I do is like that mindfulness practice, teaching you how to be grounded, teaching you how to be centered. I give my clients in our Finding Peace After Divorce program, in our group program, we talk about doing specific guided meditations with certain intentionalities of what to get out of it. Because when you heal things internally, that's when the healing really starts. You can't start, you know, like I was using men to make myself feel better. He was using really money. Like he felt like if I keep making money, I must be worth something, you know, because that was kind of the message. It was a very overt message from his parents, actually. Laura, now she struggled with, her thing was she just kind of like got used a lot because she trusted everyone due to her childhood. She was never allowed to feel like she had an opinion. You know, she came from a family that was like super like conservatively religious, and so children should be seen and not heard. So her opinion was never valued, her feelings were never validated, and so she really never felt visible. And so she would find relationships where she felt wanted on the surface, but really what these relationships, they were using her because she was a people pleaser. So she'd do whatever they want, buy whatever gifts they want. So it kind of fed that like, see, I'm here, I matter. But it was really just a false sense because they really weren't valuing for her and her authentic self as what she could give to them. And I see that a lot with people pleasers. So it begins with loving, it's unconditional love. It's loving yourself unconditionally and accepting yourself unconditionally, all of yourself. The shadow parts, the ones that we want people to see, it's all of that. So it begins with identifying how that unlovability, that unworthiness, how does it go back to your childhood? And like what I do in my program is like quickly we get to the immediate, like with this client, he's brand new, 3 weeks in. And I mean, it's just been like boom, 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 uncovering. And it's just, okay, here's a tool to heal that. Here's how to work through that. Here's what you do with that. And it's just the energy and the productivity, he says, has been amazing. I think I've even got one of his little texts he sent me. He goes, oh my gosh, I can't, you know, because it weighs you down when you're carrying this stuff for years and years and years. So you feel less than, you feel like unenergetic. And, you know, y'all heard me at the beginning of this, man. I know what my life purpose is. I know who I am. I love what I do. I woke up at 4 o'clock this morning, so excited because it just feels so energized. You know, when you're in alignment with who you are and how you want to show up and what you do, it's just amazing. And so we identify quickly how these unhealed triggers go back to your youth. For him, he had quite a bit of trauma, 2nd, 4th, and then an accident at 13 and 15. So he had like identifiable like instances. Some of my clients, it's more like just kind of how their parents ingrained in them, like invalidated them and said some certain things with them that we've had to overcome. And our relationship with our parents, it shapes our perception of what love is. That's the thing. And I know people are like, well, wait a minute, I don't want to go back. And listen, I'm not saying we're going to stay in the past, because I'm all about getting you moving forward fast. Like that's what makes this amazing. But if we can identify that quickly, heal that, almost like pulling like that belief out by the root and like chucking it, then we can move forward super, super fast. Many of us don't even see the red flags, because those red flags feel like home. Can anyone like kind of like identify with that? Because I see that where, because of the way the parents treated you, you end up just like in a relationship where you feel it, that feels comfortable for you. For me, I would cause drama and chaos in my relationships, because I didn't know what the hell to do when something's stable and secure. And, so I would create it. I can't see y'all, so I just want to make sure. Let me check in. What do we think? Is this resonating with y'all? Can I get some amens? Can I get some feedback? Yes. Okay. We got quiet. Okay.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Deb.
I was just gonna say, I'm hearing what you're saying. It is definitely resonating. Going back to childhood, it doesn't just go back to my marriage of 42 years. It does go back to my childhood of emotional feeling like I was invisible. That's something that I recognized a long time ago. That's how I identified my childhood. I felt like I was invisible because nothing, I was supposed to just do what I was supposed to do, but but there was no emotional validation, no hugs, no I love yous from either parent. So so just looking for that when I was older, looking for that from men, from still choosing people who were just like choosing men who ended up being just like my mother in certain ways, treating me the same way. And
yes, amen. Yes. So let me give you an example of like John. Oops, I went too far. Let me see. Let me pause on it. So John, he came to me because he and his wife had been married for years, but so the honest truth was she was very unhealthy. It was a very unhealthy relationship. I'm actually very pro marriage, I'm pro healthy relationship is what I am. I don't think I'm pro divorce, but I'm definitely pro healthy relationship. And this relationship had just a lot of like really negative, there was a lot of negativity going on, and she would leave him and go get a boyfriend and then come back and get a boyfriend. And it was just this really very unhealthy for their children, that instability and her need for, validation from men or whatever, and leaving him and stuff, just really not a good situation. And he knew, and he's like, I want to leave and I want to make this permanent. I keep like leaving and coming back, leaving and permanent. And so why is it so hard for, I know some of you, I got children, get it. I know what, so why is it so hard, right? So this is what I'm talking about, like our parents' relationship shapes our perception of how we are as adults. So John had, and again, like, why do I go back? So I'm, took him right away within first session of like, okay, let's talk about when did this start, right? And so he had a mom who he had an alcoholic father who would go on these benders for weeks and then would come back. But the thing was, when the father was gone, the mother would lavish the son with attention, and they'd be close and they'd be connecting, and she'd get attention and affection. And then the father would come back, and then all the attention and affection would go back to the dad, you know, again, keep the peace, right, with the alcoholic father. So it was this, you know, so it's like, it makes perfect sense that like you're in this chaotic relationship of back and forth, attention, abandonment, attention. It's the same thing. His wife was doing the same thing. So what we did was break the energetic tie with the mom. We break that tie. We forgive the mother and release that. And forgiveness is like a whole nother topic. We let that go so that then that energetic tie with the wife is loosened. And so, I mean, now he's healed all that, like, you know, from an abusive father, and a mother is like, didn't give him what he needed. And now, you know, he's like totally grown professionally. He's not dating. Just total honesty, it's just not what he is. He's got 4 kids. He wants to focus on his career and his kids and be the best dad that he has. He has custody. So it's just amazing. So you really can take your life to another level if you know kind of how to identify those wounds. Okay, so all right, so let's talk about healing abandonment. So this is kind of the process that I take and again, so kind of like what Deb is saying, and like what I did with my client who's like, what are you talking about, abandon? Like, what are you talking about, Terry? My parents are great. I had a good upbringing, blah, blah, blah. So sometimes it's just emotional abandonment. Sometimes we don't even recognize how our parents didn't give us what we need. So we have to notice where we're triggered, and we acknowledge those feelings that are coming up. And like with this new client, for example, it was around money. The money was triggering him. So when we connect that and we put the dots together of him and what his parents said and conditioned and said over and over and over, we heal that, you know. So we acknowledge, we name that hurt, we name that pain. And then the last step is I give my clients the tools to reparent himself. So right now we're in that process of like consciously giving himself what he needs, consciously reparenting himself in that voice. The grown-up version of himself has to give himself what he did. And I did it with John too. Like, what did you need from your mother? And like, so we reparented him through that. So, you know, I utilize a lot of rituals too in my Finding Peace After Divorce program, because here's why. And now the science is backing all of this stuff up. All this stuff, like finally research is starting to understand some of these holistic ways of treating trauma and treating emotional issues. We're starting to see that rituals help to bypass that intellectual part of your brain that says, my mom loved me, you know, but we bypass all of that. And then you tap into creativity and intuition, and we bring the subconscious to the conscious, and then it's a conscious way of releasing it and letting it go. So there's a lot to it, but also it's also about soothing that parasympathetic nervous system that has got you. So I hate that Steph left right at this part, because this would be really good for her. So we soothe that parasympathetic system, nervous system that was like triggered as a child. And then what happens is if you marry particularly toxic people, like John did, like a toxic ex-wife, we give him some tools. We got to calm that. We've got to like resolve that. You've got to give yourself what you need, because otherwise your body just stays in fight or flight mode. And we're trying to like, you are safe, you're okay. We soothe that, and then we use other exercises. We implement guided meditations or journaling exercises that really, like, then ease that emotional part of you. Yes. Okay. So, okay, forgiveness. Okay. Thank you, by the way, for sharing that. Someone wrote in the comments, I tried to forgive my mom and ex, but there still is a whole, okay. So yeah, that is a whole other process. Like I think I just need to do a whole, like, I do a lot of podcasts on forgiveness because it's like people are really curious about what forgiveness is. So I want to explain like what it is and what it isn't. It's not condoning what they did. Okay. I tell you, the first person I forgave after my divorce was my father. The second was my sexual abuser. And then it took me, I'll just be honest with you, it was hard for me to forgive myself, really super, super hard. I mean, that was probably the hardest part in it, but it's not about condoning what the person did. It's not about forgetting what the person did, and it's not about letting down boundaries. In fact, like y'all know I'm a badass when it comes to boundaries, right? I preach it, I teach it. Boundaries are important, but it's about releasing the toxic emotions that someone else gave you. Like I chose to forgive that sexual abuser because I'm not carrying around that shame anymore. I refuse. So it's a process that I walk my clients through, step-by-step process that like allows them to also go a little bit deeper about what that anger is hiding and what's beneath that. We go a little bit deeper and let that all go, and then we release it. Listen, it's also a journey. Like sometimes, again, I'll use me as an example, like with that person that that family member that like really betrayed my family. I had to get to a certain point. Like it's okay to be in that anger state. And that's what I tell my clients, like, you feel that? Okay, feel it, acknowledge it, embrace it. Don't pretend it's not there. Don't distract yourself from it. Like with the loneliness, embrace it. And whatever's going on, like just feel that anger, just feel that for right now. Then when you are willing, will walk you through the forgiveness. Because I needed to kind of like, because sometimes when that emotional wound is so raw, we kind of need to stay in that anger, because the anger's it's a protection, it's an energetic protection. But then there was a time, y'all, I'm telling you, if you're holding on to the bitterness, you're holding on to that anger, forgiveness is like the most releasing exercise that you can do. Because it was when I was in the kitchen and I was still in my anger phase at this family member, and one of my kids said that person's name, and like all three of my kids like all like glanced over at mama, and I like that was my like aha moment of like, oh shit, it's time to let this go. Because I'm telling you, people feel that energy. If you're carrying around that toxic energy, man, you're building walls. So the bad thing about like holding on to this stuff, and when you don't forgive or you refuse to forgive, is like, you're walling out yourself to love. I was walling out my kids' love, and I didn't ever want them to feel like they can't be themselves around mommy. They can't share what they want. I want them to love who they want. I don't ever want to put a wall around love. But, it was making me sour. It was making me shitty. I was holding on to this, and I was like, it was tainting me. It's not hurting the other person. So the problem with like when we hold on to that, it's not hurting the other person. It's just hurting ourselves, and it's keeping us from that love. So we could do a whole thing on. I love talking about forgiveness too. And listen, sometimes people don't like the F word. They're like, don't call it forgiveness, T. Do not call it the F word. And I'm like, I'm fine. If you want to call it release, you want to call it surrender, you want to call it, different healers have different like names for it, and I'm totally fine, because forgiveness has so many connotations and so many preconceived notions. People think like, oh, it means I condone what they did, or I have to let them back in my life, or I have to accept that behavior. Not at all. Not at all. I'm not saying that at all. You don't have to accept, your toxic mama's comments. You don't have to accept, bullshit from your ex. I'm not saying that. But we can relieve ourselves of the toxic emotions that they gave to us. That's how I look at it. So I love talking about forgiveness or releasing. So someone's asking me about surrender. Surrender is a verb. It's something that you're consciously doing. You're consciously, when I talk about surrender, I'm talking about like accepting and allowing the emotions rather than denying, because the more you deny something, the more it'll envelop you. So surrender is an action. It's like, I'm going to accept. I'm going to accept this. And it's weird because I was thinking about this just yesterday, and I need to figure out how to articulate this well, because acceptance and letting go hand in hand. You can't let go until you've like learned to accept something as it is without like wanting it to change. So if you accept, my ex will always be this way, I can't change my ex, then you can actually start to let them go. You can start to let that go. So let's talk about why you don't have boundaries, because this goes with trust. I'm trying to think, did I do a specific, I thought I did a specific thing on trust. Yes, okay. So boundaries and trust go hand in hand. So I might kind of go over these slides back and forth. Okay, so if you are struggling with trust, okay, so loneliness and trust, like it's goes together, because the reason why you're lonely is probably because you don't feel unworthy, and you don't trust because you don't feel unworthy, so you don't have good boundaries, or you don't see red flags. So the truth is, you don't trust yourself because maybe you don't have a good track history. Maybe you are a people pleaser, or you're so afraid of missing the red flags again that you don't trust yourself. Or another reason people don't trust themselves is that they think they can't handle the pain. I can't handle the pain of the loss again. So oftentimes people put up the walls or don't trust anyone because really they don't trust that they can go through this again, because it's so painful to go through betrayal. It's so painful to lose everything, right? So let me go back. Let me see the other, if we talk about boundaries, because boundaries and trust go hand in hand. Yes, okay, so okay, I'll use my client Bob as an example too. So the 3 parts of boundaries, A is clearly defining your boundaries. So in one of the modules in our Finding Peace After Divorce group program is we start to clearly define our boundaries. And one of those is there's a core values assessment where you really get authentic about who you are, what you want, who am I? Because so many of us, we don't even know who we are. We've been conditioned by our parents. We've been conditioned by society. We've been conditioned by a toxic marriage where we had to give up parts of ourselves. Oh, and that's what I wanted to say. That was the other thing. I think it was Anne. I wanted to talk about resentment, and I wanted to talk about, oh, y'all don't let me forget. I'm writing that down. Resentment, why you resent, and why toxic relationships are so hard to overcome. Kind of like this. Okay. So the reason why you don't trust yourself, especially if you've been in a toxic relationship, is because you've spent years and years, and maybe it was your parents too. So maybe you were conditioned as a child, like to never express your needs or to not rock the boat. So I'm not going to say anything, or I'm going to try to guess constantly what the other person is going to say or what the other person is going to do. So you really haven't developed who you are, what your needs are, what your authentic self is, because you've spent so many years second guessing yourself. So it's become this kind of MO now. This is how I operate. I never trust anything I want or do. So, in our Healthy Boundaries module, we're relearning all of that. Learning what your core values are, learning through the mindfulness practice, through the awareness practice, like, what do I want? What does this mean? Can I trust myself? And it's reframing your thinking too. So there's 3 parts of boundaries, and it, oh, sorry, I went back too far. So clearly defining your boundaries and communicating those boundaries clearly. And I give my clients tools for like how to effectively communicate, especially with like your ex, right? And then following through with the boundaries. The problem is many of us aren't used to following through with the boundaries because we still, this goes along with the loneliness, because we don't love ourselves, or we don't really fully feel our worth, or we don't think we matter, and we've put other people's needs and they matter, right? So you have to learn through self-care, self-acceptance, self-love, all of that stuff. The key to setting boundaries is developing the self-worth. The reason why you're not following through with boundaries is because you're afraid someone might get mad at you. You know, but when you love yourself and you know my needs matter, you go, tough shit. I gotta go to the gym. It's like, it's what I do. And like, if someone doesn't like that, that's on them, not on me. I like who I am. I love who I am. I don't need anyone else's approval. But most people who don't, well, all people who don't have self-worth, they don't address their needs. They don't put themselves out there, and they're afraid of making other people mad. They're afraid of other people not liking them. Because they get their self-worth from other people. Again, they're trying to, and maybe you're doing this, you're trying to heal an internal problem with external solutions. You think, oh, if I, do what my sister asked me to do, she won't get mad, she'll like me. If I, do this for so-and-so, they'll like me. And so, I mean, with most of my clients, it's not only are they struggling with divorce, but they're struggling with a lot of interpersonal relationships. They don't have a good work-life balance. They don't have true friends. They're just kind of, friends when they get what they want. So, okay, I was going to tell you about Bob. Okay, so Bob, when he came to me, was kind of struggling with, he was dating, and he was really internally struggling is this relationship what I want? And again, didn't really have good boundaries. And then through working with me, what he found was, it was a healthy relationship, but he'd been in such a toxic relationship for so long, he could, he needed to know, is this a good relationship? So we worked through that relationship and through who he was, and finding his authentic voice and letting go of his conditioning from he had a really, really hard ass dad. That was where his stuff came from. And so the amazing thing is, as he was building his self-worth and building boundaries, his work, because he was a CEO of this big company, locally. And so, but what he was doing when he was kind of in this, lower version of himself, you could kind of call it, was putting out all these small fires at work. Because here's the thing, he got a lot of there was a part of him that enjoyed that, because it made him feel like, oh, okay, I'm special. And, look, I'm handling this little problem. But the problem was, he wasn't stepping into who he was as a CEO by diving into these small little things that should have been delegated to other people. And when he said, I'm not dealing with that anymore, and he put boundaries around that and said, okay, go to HR, he started looking like a boss at his company. He stepped into his power, I mean, you can't imagine Jeff Bezos or some billionaire putting out little fires or whatever in HR. It would be ridiculous, because you can't do that. You have to step into your power. And I would tell you, when you have boundaries, people feel secure around you. They feel good about being around you. They know where you stand. They feel more safe. They feel more secure in your presence. They're like, oh, she don't put up with that. We all know what she will and will not do, right? We all have those people in our life. So the thing is, it makes you feel better, and it makes other people feel better. I think will there be pushback? Yeah, from people who have used you in the past, especially if you have an ex that triggers you, yeah, they're going to ramp it up initially. What happens is you start putting up boundaries and people push back. They're like, whoa, 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 whoa. I'm going to ramp up the tantrum here because eventually she's going to, give in, or he's going to do this for me because I'm doing, I'll just ramp it up. That's what they do. Okay, so let's see. So you've got to really reframe your thinking from being I can never say no to my ex, to I have a right to say no to others if it's an invasion of my space or violation, right? Again, it's all part of like doing the self-worth work too. You've got to do the inner work as well as the outer work too. I get this one a lot too from people who like, well, it's my family. I can't say no to my family. Like, they're like, no, it's a family and everybody's responsible for themselves. So you've got to reframe your thinking. I have a right to take care of myself. If they want to stay together as a family, it's up to each individual to make that decision to take care of themselves. We all share responsibility because so many of us, come from families where the family tells you, oh, you have to do that, or you have to talk to Bobby Sue, or you have to talk to your sister, or your sister needs you, these unhealthy family dynamics, and they spilled into, marriages and relationships. And so here's another one, y'all. I can never trust anyone again. Okay, you have to reframe that. I have a right to take a risk to grow. If my rights are being violated and ignored, if I see those red flags, I can speak up for myself and ensure that my needs are met. So you just have to reframe how you're thinking. You have to understand, like, you matter too. So how do we get self-worth? So I kind of explained a little bit about it, and especially with the healing abandonment, it's identifying those triggers, giving yourself what you need, reparenting yourself. It's a process, right? But it also does start with radical self-care. And if you're going through divorce, you've been through divorce, listen, y'all, I want you to treat yourself like you're a grieving person, because we are in the throes of grief. Like, I'm not anymore, but I've been there, done that. And like shaming yourself, blaming yourself, like not doing the things that you need right now, that's the opposite of what you need. You need to put yourself first. You need to give yourself the self-care. You got to nurture yourself. Unconditional love, radical compassion. I don't even think I have that here. I got to add that, radical compassion. What is radical self-compassion? Radical self-compassion is like, hey, giving yourself grace. You're going to make mistakes, and you're going to say to yourself, hey, it's okay. You have a right to make mistakes. It happens. It's all right. I went through a really, really rough patch last year. One of my children struggled with some mental health things, and man, it was like devastating. And it just threw our family for a loop. And I'll never forget, like one day, I was going to the gym, and I was like late. I'm always like getting there early, setting them away, getting there. And I was running late. And I was like being I remember, because this is where that awareness comes in. I was like just being aware of the thoughts. I was like, you're so stupid. You're late. Like, how could you get late? Like, what are you, just like beating myself up in my head. And I was like, whoa. I was like, hey, you made it here. Like, that's okay. Like, it's all right. You can just, spend 5 extra minutes if you'd like. It's all right. You did the best you can. Most people don't even make it to the gym. Here you are. You made it to the gym and you did it anyway. So I just had to reframe. So it's called radical self-compassion. So it's becoming aware of those thoughts of when you're beating yourself up and just loving the hell out of yourself and say, oh, it's okay. You made a mistake. It's all right. We all make mistakes. It's okay. You're here. You made it. You did it anyway. And so learning that unconditional self-acceptance too, and healing unhealthy beliefs and childhood traumas. So, and betrayal trauma, that's a big one too. That one's a hard one. I'm not even gonna sugarcoat that, because betrayal trauma, been there, done that. And it is like, holy shit. Like I said, I was like, well, this just brought me into even further alignment. Thank you, universe. Like, I just say you do have to kind of look at it that way, but because our challenges and our setbacks are where the real healing is. And you gotta, we're all gonna have challenges and setbacks. So, and every time you learn from it, you grow from it, and you become a better person from it, hopefully. So I'm gonna look at the time. I don't have a timepiece here. Ooh, I'm sorry, y'all. All right, I want to wrap up because, y'all, like I said, closure, blah, 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 self-compassion. Here's a radical self-compassion tool. I can put this in the email too if y'all want. I'm going to send out an email with the replay later as well. Again, there it is right there. One of the things is that self-criticism. It's all about like becoming aware, putting in the mindfulness, putting your hand on your heart, taking a breath, and then reframing that. I kind of just went into mom mode and was like, it's all right, Terry, you're okay. It's all right. You made it to the gym, and rather than shaming myself, at least you're here. Most people don't even make it to the gym every day. It's all right. So you got to talk to yourself in that way, in that loving, compassionate way that you wanted your parent to. So, okay. So here's just some like kind words. I'm going to share some kind words. And this is Chris, this is that client I was telling y'all about, like where after one session, it's like, oh my God, I've had lots of good insights. My mind is cranking. This is after like months and months of depression and lack of energy and lack of productivity. And after one session, man, sometimes when you release that floodgate, it is like shocking. And then someone wrote me, another Jane, she said, therapies never worked for me. What does work for me is what you do. And again, it's a very different process. My step-by-step process has like actionable, implementable things that you can put into your life right away. We're not just going to sit here and bitch about your ex. That's not what I'm here for. I'm going to help you like figure out a solution, a problem, and put some things into place. And then, we could just, y'all want to just take a moment and look at the kind words. I love getting the kind words from people. It's about saving time off the divorce for some of my clients who are in the midst of it. Like, okay, how can we look for, again, we're looking for solutions, rather than digging our heels in. Got to get creative. So, and this is why I love this one from Danny, because she actually was married. And this is what I teach is like when you show up differently and you're not reacting to our conditioning, your partner then changes how they show up in the relationship. It's just like with Linda, right? And her ex, when they were like head to head, like screaming at each other to be in hanging out. Like, I mean, it totally, when you shift how you show up, people respond differently. So, and I meant to ask y'all how you found me. If you found me in Meetup or were you in the Facebook group? If you want, I would love it, just to share your biggest takeaway in the Facebook group so other people can see, hey, I attended the meeting today and it was like, powerful, or I learned, this about myself, or if, you can do it anonymously too. It's just like sharing those helps to see others. Hey, come and join us. It's amazing. So I'd love it if you want to do that. And then, like I said, how can you get support? So if you are ready to feel confident, move forward, find peace no matter what is going on around you, I invite you to, I have a phone call. I have an individual phone session that I do. So I've put aside 2 this week. And we're going to talk about how to stop feeling lonely so you can feel secure and confident again. How to let go of abandonment so that you can trust again and feel lovable and worthy. And the #1 strategy to create boundaries so that you can attract healthy, happy, fun partners. I want you to have a fun, happy relationship like me and my New York Italian. Y'all can have fun like we do. So just checking that. Okay, good. Really super quickly, while I'm posting the Calendly link, this is my calendar so we can chit chat on the phone. I would love to have a call from y'all. I've set aside specific time this week. I'm going to stop sharing really quickly so I can grab that link and I'll post it in the, cannot minimize, snap. I'm going to be sending out the Calendly link in an email today. Tell y'all what, tell me where you found me. Did you find me on Facebook or was it through the Meetup? Just so I have a sense of like, where are people getting us from? It will not allow me to put the link, and I don't think I can copy and paste from the screen either. Meetup. Okay, Jeremy found me on Meetup, most everyone else on Facebook. Okay. All right, y'all. This happened last time. I couldn't get the Calendly link, and I thought I fixed it. Dang on it. Let me see. Was that another meetup? What is it? Nope, just one meetup. So most everyone is okay. So yeah, I cannot copy and paste that link. This happened last time. I don't know why. Let me see if it's in one of my share. What's the meetup called? It's called Thriving After Divorce. Same thing, Deb. And the meetup does the same thing that the Facebook group. It has the events, it has our workshops. Facebook, I'll just be honest with y'all. I try to get you into Facebook because it's more interactive. With Meetup, we can't really interact. And in Facebook, we can, share resources. We get some more timely. Whereas Meetup, it's just more like, here's an event, show up. It's just not as interactive. Let me see if I can share my Calendly because I know I opened it. Yes, thank y'all so much. If you have to go, I totally understand. But I do want to address Deb's thing on resentment because I'm actually writing a piece on resentment where I was holding on to some resentment. Let me share my screen. Let's see if I can get that Calendly link. One last, oh, there it is. Yay. But I bet you I can copy the link. I did it. Yep, I will. I'm definitely going to share. You're all going to get an email too, but there's the link. That's what I had to do. I had to share the screen. Okay, so I want to talk really quickly and then I want to hear y'all's takeaways, but like talk about resentment. So one of our members talked about like she's holding on to resentment. And again, it's a judgment, right? Resentment is also a form of protection. So Deb, I'm curious and wondering what resentment means is that somewhere in your life, you're not prioritizing yourself. So I'm wondering where in your life, so, maybe after our workshop today, just do a little bit of meditation or a little bit of reflection or journaling on like, where am I not prioritizing my life in that, that I'm feeling this resentment. So maybe also you have some conditioning around money because my client, the new client that I was telling y'all about, he has a lot of conditioning around money. I had a lot of money issues too because of my upbringing. I was, raised very poor. And I also have had a lot of shame around that. Oh, thanks, Jeremy. And so, money, we all have a lot of like money issues. Everyone has like money issues. So resentment might be some conditioning from your parents that you've been conditioned with. And also it might be somewhere in your life, you're holding on to, you're not prioritizing yourself. So that's what resentment means. So you might want to think about and reflect or journal, like why am I resenting this? Like where in my life am I not prioritizing my needs and my desires? So really quick, if y'all want to share in the chat box, what was your biggest takeaway from today? And again, if you want to share it on the meetup or on the Facebook group, just to get a sense of like what you learned, what was your biggest takeaway? Am I still screen sharing? I will stop sharing now. Or if you want to type in the chat box. Now we got quiet. Thinking about, okay, it was interesting thinking about back to my childhood, and now I see that continued through my marriage. Oh yeah, I think we haven't been taught how much our relationships with our parents is mirrored into our marriage. We're either trying to, so for me, I would try to heal that void. I would try to find men that made me feel good about myself. Like, honestly, I had good husbands. They loved me. It was all about control. Oh, I'm wondering, Anne, you mean money, control and money? And that for sure. I mean, that's definitely, and just control in general. I think sometimes if we have controlling parents or parents who have an agenda, and then we find a spouse who is controlling and has an agenda with you. I have to prioritize myself, self-love, self-care. Oh my God, it's so important. It's so important. And the more like rough stuff you're going through, the more you need to prioritize like your self-care. So just think about this divorce, think about what you're going through, and like, where do I need loving? Where do I need nurturing? Don't shame yourself for that. Like, give yourself whatever it is you need. You know, you need rest, you need joy, you need to watch a funny movie, like, and it's different for everybody. For me, like, working out is self-care. For me, reading is self-care. It's not about, okay, so I also should have talked about this. Self-care is not about bubble baths. And like, for some people it is. Some people, I am not a bath person. Do not put me in a dirty bath. Like, that's not my thing. But for other people, working out, they don't see that as self-care. So it's all about what you define as self-care and self-nurturing. Okay, I'm kind of reading the chat box too. Yes. And listen, financial abuse is a real thing too. It's control. Abuse is about control and manipulation. And yes. So if your dad was controlling with money and you were conditioned with this kind of like mindset around money, I'm telling you, y'all, I could do a whole workshop on money too, like just on money, because it's like totally crazy how much of our like money never means money. And I talk about this with a lot of clients that like, okay, when I do like pre-marriage counseling, I love doing pre-marriage counseling because, you know, we're talking about these issues, but like money means different things to different people. It can, for my husband, like money means freedom and joy. And for me, it means security. So those are two hugely different things, because so he's out there spending money and I'm going, oh, like, what are you doing? Like, that's, you know, like, do we really need that? So you got to really think about like what Anne's like. Amen. Go ahead, Anne. What do you want to say?
I just wanted to say this. When my husband announced it, he was going to leave, I said, just come with me to a counselor, and just so we can, you know, just to talk and see what she has to say. It was totally stupid and ridiculous, no waste of time. But the very first thing he said to her was, well, I like to play the stocks, and Anne thinks that now we're retired, I shouldn't be playing the stock market anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And that just said it all, really.
Yeah. Well, and that's and the thing is too, Anne, like, that's a huge thing. That's not like, I mean, the whole gamut of that is like, so definitely differences for sure. Okay. Yeah. How about you, Deb? What was your biggest takeaway?
Well, I think the whole thing about self-care and also kind of tied into that, like I said early on, learning to trust myself, to trust my own instincts again. It's something that and then you kind of opened up a little more about going back to the childhood aspect of things. And I think I sort of recognize this, but I've kind of papered it over again. And I think I still need more work on that.
Yeah, and listen, I have my own coach. Like, that's the thing, y'all, is we kind of have like kind of an awareness, but you need someone on the outside kind of pointing the like stuff out for you or connecting the dots, you know. And I have a friend, she's amazing, but she has this really funny saying. It sounds Southern, but she's from Jersey. So she says, you can't read the ingredients when you're in the jar. I was like, that is brilliant. You need someone on the outside kind of helping you to see what you don't see, So we all do. When I was going through all that shit, with that family member, I needed all the help, all the support, all the self-care that I could get, So keep loving yourself and nurture. I almost wish we stopped calling it. Self-care has gotten such a bad, like, it's a weird reputation. People think it's like candles and baths. It's really just about giving you what you need in the moment and not denying yourself. And the more you deny your needs, the more you're telling yourself, I don't matter. So
Yeah.
And Yolanda, did you want to share or chat or type what your biggest thank you for sharing, y'all? Beautiful ladies are left.
Thank you so much, Terry, for sharing all this with us. It's been so enlightening and really empowering. It's thank you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. And again, that's the thing about divorce. It's such a disempowering process in so many ways. So like my goal is to give y'all as many tools and as much resources and much help so you get your power back. Because there's nothing worse than feeling powerless. You know, I mean, that's my big thing is vulnerability, is
You
powerless.
get stuck. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah. Well, listen, I'm gonna end the recording, and then y'all, if you wanna like type a little something in the Facebook group, I would love it, and I cannot wait to hear from you guys. I'll put that link in the chat just one more time, just in case anyone needs it. Sorry about that. I thought I had that all worked out, and then of course, but that's good. We're good. We fixed it. So I will see y'all soon. Hopefully, talk to you this week. Okay. Bye, ladies.
Thank you.